Hello everyone and welcome to the HobbyGuard. In today's video I will be making a full-on spoiler review of the show Penitence. This is episode 3, but also I'll be talking about the rest of the show. If you don't want any spoilers, go and watch my previous reviews of the previous episodes. I keep them spoiler free as much as I can, and I dive very deeply into the themes that I like, the stories that I like, the art choices, the narrative choices, all of that. So if you're still split, if you haven't decided whether you want to watch this show or not, because again, Warhammer TV is an expensive service that doesn't have all that much content for some people would have that opinion, then go watch those reviews. It might nudge you in the right direction. Now, the reason I am going into spoilers for this review is because basically everything that happens in this third episode is a conclusion to the remaining characters, all of the remaining main characters, both the antagonists as well as the protagonists. And you know, this has been a hard review for me. I've been reordering my thoughts on this episode. I finished watching it yesterday, and I've been reordering my thoughts about this episode since then, because I think a lot of people might consider the ending to be Grimderp, by which I mean, so sometimes GW or Black Library in their stories will do a thing where characters just out of nowhere, their stories come to a horrible conclusion, and I mean horrible in the sense that they suffer a lot. It's just like gratuitous tragedy, gratuitous suffering basically by the end of their stories, and there is not like a hopeful payoff. Now, when this feels like out of place, like there was no reason and it fulfills no reason other than to remind us like, oh, this is Warhammer, people are bad, everything sucks, no joy to be found here, that's when people consider it Grimderp, when the storytellers take it too far. And there's several examples in the lore. Usually it's older lore. Warhammer has become a lot more hopeful, which I constantly criticize, but personally to me this didn't quite feel like Grimderp. That being said, I did have to look into it like within my own thoughts. I watched this episode yesterday and I kept thinking about it. I've basically been split whether like the end that this character comes to, the main character, and again, huge spoilers. So the noviciate, she ends up the mission alone. Ludmila, I think the other sister of battle's name is, she basically stays behind and sacrifices herself so that the noviciate may deliver the remains of the canoness to the temple. And many years later, it seems, the Sisters of Battle finally answer their call and they come to pick her up and they put her in a penitent engine. Now, if you don't know what a penitent engine is, it's basically one of the worst possible fates imaginable in the Warhammer universe. You will be operating a murder machine that is constantly... It's a torture device basically, but it's a weaponized torture device. So they put sinners in there, for example, Sisters of Battle who run from battle, who show cowardice or any other sort of sin or crime, and members of the ecclesiarchy that do the same. They shove them into these penitent engines and they basically throw them to the front lines where they will know nothing other than suffering and repentance. Through arcane technologies and probably very powerful drugs, they will be exposed to the worst forms of self-loathing imaginable and pain and suffering, and that's pretty much everything that they can feel. So again, especially if you are a believer in the ecclesiarchy, in the creed, in the imperial creed, this is the worst fate imaginable, because you will be feeling nothing but self-loathing and regret for the rest of your days, with a good amount of suffering to go with it. However, these engines are terribly effective in battle because they will just charge forward and just reap carnage upon enemy lines. And I would imagine that the people who are put into these torture devices also want to die themselves, right? So they are very careless when they fight, I would imagine. So yeah, our lovely main character, so adorable. I really grew attached to her little cute puppy eyes throughout the whole show. Not in a weird way, mind you, just in the sense that, you know, she's always trying to do the right thing, and she does have like cute puppy eyes, and she does seem to have faith, and she does seem sorry to feel regret for the actions that she did. Apparently she killed another novitiate accidentally, it seems. But that's her end. In the end, there's no reward, some would say. Now that I've spoiled the entire end, let me go back to just review, again, talk about the things that I liked about the show. The art direction, I really liked it. I really liked the quote-unquote cinematography of the show, you could say. I loved the... I spoke a lot about how a lot of the choices, artistic choices in the show just remind me of Renaissance painting, like the Chiaroscuro and Tenebrisum techniques respectively. And to me, you know, that tickles that part of my brain that is into the gothic aspect of Warhammer. Same goes for the narrative. I explored in my other review videos how the narrative exposes all ends basically of the spectrum as to the different phases of faith, right? You have the zealous, self-righteous, fanatic, and you have the very faithful, very naive, kind of almost new to the world kind of thing, novitiate. And then you have like the last point of this holy trinity is the wizened old sister who she's been through all of the... She's been through it all, basically. You can tell that she's been very faithful, very hopeful, and you can tell that she has gone through the ringer as well, and she's been jaded by the horrors of war, and now, closer to the end of her life, you know, she's older in years, she is perhaps looking back with more gentleness towards this novitiate who still shows some of these values and principles that perhaps she once had. And I really enjoyed that part of the narrative. And in fact, I forget what was her name, the Palatine's name, but the one that died in the last episode, unfortunately. She's basically the only one who was vouching for this novitiate and her right to do penance for her sins of killing another sister novitiate. Unfortunately, she dies and she can't not vouch in the end for her penance, for her repentance and her absolution, and it all comes to the conclusion that it comes to. But we get to see these relationships develop, and I would argue in a satisfactory way, all the way up to the end. We also have this other sister, Ludmila, who is an absolute badass in this show, and she basically represents the hard face of zealous belief of the faith, right? She is not flexible whatsoever, and she also likely represents how much of the Sisters of Battle are, as proven by the end, you know. These other sisters come and they are just as inflexible, they are just as mad at our main character, our novitiate, for her sins, and they want to see her pay for them in a very graphic way. So yeah, Ludmila, again, she's an absolute standout. I do love that this show sort of is breaking this, I'd say recent, but like this past decade gimmick of girl bosses. Like, oh yeah, all sisters in this show, I would argue, they break this gimmick of like, oh yeah, girl bosses are awesome and they can beat anyone and they can take down a 400-pound orc with no issues whatsoever. But yeah, that doesn't quite happen in this show. Every time one of them fights an orc in hand-to-hand combat, they take a beating as well. You know, it's not easy to be... I used to be a fighter, and whenever I would either do sparring or fight a bigger opponent, you always get a beating, even if you win. And to speak further about the artistic choices made in this show, again, just look at the aesthetic of the Imperium. I really like this. They capture perfectly this feeling, this theme of being in a remote, faraway, alien world, and there's this little bastion of humanity, of faith, in there hidden amongst the mountains. And it's beautiful, it's scary, it's gothic, it's grim, it's weird, but just enough that you get to appreciate all of these different edges. You get to see the devotion that people put into building these temples, these fortresses, these bunkers, whatever it is. And you also get to see like the weirdness of it. For example, I am an absolute hoe. If you look at the screen here, you can see like the temple fortress in the background. Well, it's not the background, is it? Because she's facing that way. But anyways, and you can see all the cabling, all the infrastructure, as well as the beautifully crafted gothic gates and adornments and machicolations in the walls, I think. Another aspect of the show that I really enjoyed was the orcs. I think the orcs in this show are absolutely terrifying, but not necessarily in a, oh, they're just there to be the bad guys kind of way. But the orcs also have their own narratives, they also have their own arcs, they also have their own stories. They have agency in this show. They're not there just to be bad because they're orcs and they're dumb and to be funny or to be comic relief. No, you get to see the relationships that they have. These orcs made choices and they live and die by them, and we get to see the terrifying, also kind of funny aspect of their culture, where they're very light-hearted but also extremely brutal and violent, and almost nonchalantly so. I love that. And there are also some cool hints, or I'm not sure if call them Easter eggs, but there is this whole thing about, oh, they're going back to Armageddon, which is a huge tease for the narratives in the 11th edition of Warhammer, that now we know it's gonna be at least the launch box set. It's gonna be themed around Armageddon, and we have seen a lot of animations, you know, the return of Yarick and so on. So Armageddon is gonna be a huge theme in the months or years to come once again in Warhammer, and I did like that they are basically pointing us, and okay, this is the point of time in the timeline where this is happening. It's very recent, this is happening right now. This entire story took place just now, and this is how the orcs are reacting to it. I loved how they really want to go chase the big wah at Armageddon, which, you know, if you know, it's Ulanor. It's the homeworld, and the ancient homeworld of the orcs, or at least it used to be. So this is a huge deal for them. And one of the orcs, the main bad guy in the story, he chooses to chase the Sisters of Battle because he is just blinded by bloodlust, and he even kills one of his lieutenants in this chase because he disagreed with him. So yeah, I really liked the orcs in the show as well. Again, they're scary, but they're also orcs. They are funny, but not in a throwaway way, like, oh, they're just there for comic relief. No, they are funny in a very grim, dark way, and we never lose sight of that, and I love it, basically. So finally, we come to the end of the show. The reveal that the noviciate has not been absolved for her sins, and she has to be basically punished for the rest of her days. I feel like this was earned because we are shown a couple of times that she sort of refuses to change throughout the story. There are many ways throughout the story where, yes, at first she's almost like bullied by Ludmilla for her sins again, but where we get to see, it's not that she lacks courage, not at all. In fact, she's very courageous, but she lacks greed, and she has enough faith that she is willing and able to carry through the mission, but we never know whether she is carrying on through the mission because she actually believes in the mission of her penitence, or because she just wants to be rewarded. This might just be my opinion, but towards the end, when the Sisters of Battle, like we can assume only a few years later, when they come back to this world to pick her up, to collect her, so to speak. Shout out by the way to the Sisters of Battle that come to collect her. They're absolute badasses. They're absolutely terrifying. We don't even see her faces, and I love it. They're really, really cool. But anyways, when we see this character again after, we can only assume, a few years, the first impression that she gives off, is not of a humble novitiate who has been doing penance for her crimes, for her sins, all these years. No, she seems to have moved on before that, and we almost feel like she's expecting a kind of hero's welcome. Hey, no one can blame her, okay? She went through absolute hell. But again, we don't ever really see her grow through this, in the sense that she seems pretty much the same when she begins, and at the end she's just more confident, kind of almost more full of herself, in the sense that she just starts, chatting with the Sisters of Battle like, hey, she's not differential at all to them at first, until she reads the room, she reads the vibe in the room. And again, she does give off this feeling of like, oh, she's not really humble, she's a bit full of herself, which is kind of like where the grimdarkness comes in. If this was any other universe, if this was, for example, real life, and someone goes through all of that, yes, she would be welcomed as a hero. She would be obviously in all of her right to feel joy at being rescued, at being picked up, at getting together back with her sisters. But this is not our world. This is Warhammer, and they rule themselves by a different code, which takes us to the horrifying conclusion of the story. And we are left with some questions. I mean, if we want to be very Grimderpish about it, very immature about it, we will be like, oh yeah, she should have just accepted her fate and just accept that she will better serve the Emperor in that penitent engine. I think that's completely unrealistic. I think that, and even in the lore, most people would fight tooth and claw to get away from, to avoid that fate, basically. And I don't blame her for it at all. But again, we don't really see a lot of her repentance. We don't, even before they drag her out to the penitent engine, she doesn't really know which fate awaits her. She immediately starts fighting back against the sisters, like, oh no, you don't understand, like I'm absolved. I made my penance. I'm free of sin now. I made up for it. And the sisters are just not having it. Now, I have a personal theory. The way I understood it is, these sisters that come to pick her up, they seem angry that they lost an entire squad of very revered Sisters of Battle, including the Palatine. And they are probably like, well, she's gonna make up for it, because we lost so many sisters because of her stupidity, because of her sinning. So we gotta get some firepower back on our lines. Obviously, they didn't see everything that happened. That was not necessarily her fault. In fact, she was quite an asset during the quest, during the entire escape and journey towards the temple. She was an asset for the most part, even though if she does seem a bit weak in her skills, because she's not a full Sister of Battle yet, obviously. But in the end, to me, it just made sense. Again, this is very grimdark, and at first, obviously, I didn't like it. Because look at those puppy eyes, man. Look at that face. You just wanna like, no, it's gonna be fine. Come on, you did good. But no, this is Warhammer, and you get to suffer for all eternity and pay. And at first I was like, no, this can't be, man. This felt really anticlimactic. But again, overnight, that's why I didn't make the review right away. It kind of grew on me. Like, yeah, it makes sense in the world of Warhammer, in the universe of Warhammer, and I did like the mystery of who is that spirit, that ghost, that our main character, the novitiate, sees, because she is guiding her at some point throughout the story. And I could only, in the past episode, I came to the conclusion that perhaps that was her way of forgiving her. We come to find out, that she, at least the vision that appears, that is the same novitiate that this one, our main character, I forget her name, sorry about that she killed. We assume that she killed her by accident. I think that's what she says. But I interpreted that in the past as, well, yeah, she's forgiving her and now she's aiding her in her quest. But after this episode, I'm like, oh, maybe that has nothing to do with it. We don't know. Was she a warp entity? Was she perhaps a demon? Or was she an echo of her own psychology? Was the novitiate going schizophrenic? And just a manifestation of her regrets, of her guilt? Or was she actually a spirit and she actually was trying to help her, and yet the spirit is powerless? So there are a lot of mysteries as well. And to me, one of my favorite mysteries in Warhammer is the Imperial religion as a whole, the Imperial Creed. Because through the ecclesiarchy we are constantly shown horrible things that humans do to each other in the name of faith, but there are also actual miracles that happen, things that have no explanation, that come to pass. Often it is for the, we could argue, the good of humanity, but not always. Sometimes the people, the recipients or the witnesses of these miracles, just end up suffering more than others, just like in our actual myths, right? Going all the way back to the Greek myths, the Greek tragedies, these heroes, these characters, they often suffer so much. And we could talk about a bunch of different religions as well. We could look at our religions and mythologies as well. Even ones that are still being practiced till this day, a lot of them are absolute tragedies. And I think Warhammer sticks to that theme, to that narrative, and that's where they get their gothic essence from. Making the dark and the umbral beautiful and thoughtful when it is done so. So, I've yapped long enough. Again, this is a longer video probably longer than the actual episode was, but that's it. That's my review of this show. Again, I really liked it. I like that Warhammer, the storytellers at Warhammer, Black Library and Games Workshop are still going in this grimdark direction. They are still offering up, at least to the older fans, before everything got so cartoonized and so hopeful and so silly, we still get these nice tidbits of grimdarkness in the lore. And I, for one, do appreciate it, do like it, but now I would like to know how you felt about it. Do you think it's just grimdark? Is this completely unearned? Sorry, I meant to say Grimderp. I don't know if my accent sewered me in there. But do you think this is just Grimderp? Do you think this is just a lame ending, like, oh, let's just be edgy for the sake of being edgy? Or do you think that this ending paid off? I would love to know your opinions about anything regarding the show. Again, did you like the animation? Did you like the story? Did you like the characters? Did you like the ending? Whatever it is, please let me know in the comment section down below. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you would like to see more like that. And remember, Ad Astra, and there are no female custodies.